everybody, it's Shaman Sister Sin, and you're listening to the Meditations and More podcast brought to you by BetterHelp.com and LittleShaman.org. That's me, Little Shaman. Today I wanted to talk to you about something that many people wonder about, and that is, what do narcissists want? Now, we should preface these remarks by saying that in this context, words like infantile, underdeveloped, and childish are referring to lacking things that develop with maturity, such as conscious evolved empathy, self-reflection, the ability to act with agency, taking accountability and responsibility for one's own actions, stuff like that. It is in no way implied that narcissistic personalities are like children in that they are innocent or that they don't understand that the things they are doing are wrong. People are often uncomfortable with what they perceive as a comparison of narcissists to children because of the idealizations that many people hold about children. The reality is that children can be extremely intentionally cruel because their empathy, among other things, is not fully developed yet. People often look back on their own behavior, even in high school, and feel terrible for the way that they acted exactly because of that reason. Empathy is a function of maturity, and in this respect, we are perhaps not precisely making a comparison of narcissists to children. We could potentially say that narcissists are children in this respect. However, only in this respect. In other words, this does not make them not responsible for their actions, nor does it make them unable to understand the fact that their behavior is not okay, but it does help us to understand some of the mechanics of why they do the things that they do. It should also not be assumed that an adult person can learn these things the way that a child can. Narcissists are not children. Children are blank slates in many ways. There's nothing for them to unlearn. Adult narcissists have grown into functioning without the things that they're lacking. There are decades of coping strategies and defense mechanisms and belief systems and cognitive processes in place. The personality has developed around not having the things that it's lacking. The mind has created ways around this. This is very difficult to undo, and it's not a matter of simply learning the right things now as an adult. We might be tempted to think of narcissists as puzzles with missing pieces, and if the missing pieces can just be inserted, then the image will be complete and everything will be fine. However, that's not accurate. There are no missing pieces anymore. The puzzle is complete. There is nowhere to put any pieces that were initially missing because those empty spaces have already been filled in with other stuff. You cannot now insert these pieces into a system that has developed ways to operate without them. There's nowhere for them to go. So what do narcissists want? There appear to be several key focuses or drives of these personalities, and I thought we could discuss them here. First and perhaps foremost, narcissistic personalities generally want people to see them in a very specific way. This could be as perfect, as the victim, as a hero, as a scary villain, as a martyr, whatever role they prefer to see themselves in, either overall or in whatever specific situations. They want to be seen this way all the time, regardless of any evidence to the contrary. They may even appear to almost be behaving according to a script, where every scenario and interaction is interpreted through this fantasy image that they've attached themselves to, and any deviation from this script on the part of other people is reacted to extremely negatively. Pathologically narcissistic people generally have unstable or even non-existent identities. Attaching identity to a two-dimensional, often very stereotypical approximation of a person is sort of like their attempt to have one. We say attaching here because creating implies creation, and these superficial stereotyped images of good and bad people already exist. The narcissist did not invent them, they did not create them, they're just kind of attaching identity to these images in an attempt at self-definition. Because the identity is unstable then, this false projection of identity is like a static image or a still photograph in that it doesn't change. It's often very rigid and inflexible. It doesn't have the nuance and the depth a real identity has either, and doesn't appear to be capable of absorbing new information or evolving. It's like a caricature of a real person. Even when they take on a new one, it will still have those characteristics, like it won't change, it's not malleable, it doesn't evolve. Other people are essentially required to interact with and react to this false image as if that's who the narcissist really is, regardless of whether that's supported by reality or not. Failing to do that usually results in very negative reactions, such as being punished for not behaving as if the narcissist is the victim in a situation, even when it's very clear that they're not. It's important to remember that this false projection is essential to narcissistic people. It's much more than just a mask they wear to manipulate others. Manipulating others into believing that the narcissist is a decent, blameless, powerful person is necessary, but mostly so that they can then believe that themselves. It's a survival adaptation, and it is extremely important. Narcissists are also looking for people who will take more responsibility for them and for the relationship than they should, or people who allow them to perform in this role regardless of their inability to actually do so. It may even be both things at different times or in different situations in the same relationship. This can look like blaming other people for their own actions, claiming sabotage or that they can't succeed because someone's always ruining it for them, insisting on helping people who don't actually want help, refusing to make decisions, or insisting on making all the decisions even when they've demonstrated that they have neither the knowledge nor the maturity to make such decisions. Regardless of how it occurs, the underlying motive for this appears to be the same: the need to be in control and feel that they have power. However, even those that insist on taking the reins and making all the decisions may often need to be bailed out when their own ineptitude, arrogance, or failure to act has caused negative or serious consequences. This is a person who deeply desires to have control and power in all situations, but very often lacks the maturity and ability, among other things, to capably do that. As a result, they often need other people to assume the lead, take the blame, or at the very least, be willing to clean up the resulting mess. Others are blamed when things go wrong and ignored when things go right. Their function is to create an environment where the narcissist can do whatever they want while taking no accountability or responsibility whatsoever for anything. This is very much like the mindset of a child who, rightfully so, assumes that everything they need will be provided through no action or effort of their own. They don't even think about it. Why would they? This kind of entitled dependence is necessary for children. It is absolutely disastrous in an adult. Another sign of this type of dependence, and also very much like a small child, is that narcissists assume they will be put first in any and all situations and that their needs are paramount. They're the most important no matter what. An assumption is different than a belief. A belief is like an opinion in that there's an understanding that some people might feel differently or that they don't agree with you. The narcissist's importance is understood as an assumed fact that everyone is not just aware of but also agrees with. Children assume that they are always the center of everyone's focus, and so do narcissists. They are shocked and confused when this is not the case. They often conclude that they're being mistreated when they're not the focus of everything, and they may become very angry. It is sadly and deeply ironic that the very fact that many narcissists are so dependent on others is one of the reasons they are so bitterly resentful. They want to be independent, but they can't. They need you, and in a very real way, they hate you for that. They hate themselves for it too, because this is a sign of weakness in their opinion, and narcissistic personalities generally detest weakness in everybody, especially themselves. Even those who legitimately believe in their own undemonstrated abilities and even are able to achieve a level of success are dependent on others in some way to make things work. This is a source of great shame for them, and it's one of the reasons these relationships are doomed to failure. They hate you for the exact thing they need you to do, but they'll also hate you if you refuse to do it because they need you to do it. It's a projection of fear and self-loathing regarding being dependent, and you are going to carry the brunt of that. In keeping with this, it should not be a surprise that another thing narcissists want is for people not to require anything of them. They are most comfortable in situations where they're allowed to underfunction and underperform, often drastically, but still have power and control and still receive praise for their performance. Again, very much like a kid. Many of these personalities are sort of primitive in many respects. They don't have very much to give at all. So they are most comfortable and feel safest in relationships where they're not required to do so, because being asked to give is threatening when you have zero ability to do so. Being asked to give is a threat if you don't have anything to give. It's probably no surprise that a common complaint of narcissistic personalities is that people require too much of them, especially in relationships. This is not the result of laziness per se, but it's rather due to inability. Narcissistic personalities, again, are often quite underdeveloped in many ways, and because of this, they usually have serious difficulty meeting their own needs, let alone the needs of other people. They are dependent on relationships with other people, but they can have extreme difficulty sustaining these relationships unless the other person is willing to do virtually all of the work. This means that others need to not only carry all of the emotional burden, but they are frequently tasked with making life perfect so that the narcissistic personality can function. This results in narcissists often complaining and probably genuinely believing that being required to do anything, even basic adult functioning, is too much. Now, this can come across as arrogance and entitlement. I'm here, and my mere presence should be good enough, you ungrateful peon. And maybe that's even how they frame it to themselves. But when we look deeper, what we so often find is that beyond their presence, these personalities don't have very much to offer at all to a relationship, and they know it. As with so many things about these people, they're hoping to hide that because they know that relationships with other people, which they are dependent on for survival, aren't going to continue if they can't hide it. Their hope seems to be that they can charm or bamboozle or shame or abuse other people into not seeing it or not caring about it. And it often works for a time. Doesn't work forever though, because it's impossible to hide that you cannot perform at an adult level in a relationship. As soon as the relationship moves past superficial, people can see that. They might not realize what they're seeing, but they do see it. Narcissists therefore attempt to control other people. They have to try to stop that from happening. Even if it doesn't look like it, these personalities are generally pretty fearful. They fear they're going to be abandoned or rejected, and they're dependent upon other people for survival. That means rejection and abandonment equals death. This is perhaps similar to the process that causes babies to cry when they need something. Lack of attention from the caregiver results in the baby not surviving. Crying induces the caregiver to do something to stop the crying. Being able to procure the caregiver's attention equals survival. For pathologically narcissistic personalities, rejection and abandonment are much more than just things that hurt their feelings, or upset them, or cause them to lose control. They appear to be dependent on the attention and input of others in a similar way that babies are. This is a survival situation, and feeling powerless over your survival is very scary. Narcissists therefore attempt to control other people in order to make sure they will get what they need. As we explored in the episode of the show entitled The Narcissistic Harem, a study in pathological resource management, the majority of their behavior is geared toward this, and virtually all of their toxic abusive behavior boils down to trying to control other people in some way. We often hear that narcissistic personalities thrive on abuse, but it's perhaps more accurate to say that because they are driven by fear, they thrive on control, and they absolutely will use abuse to achieve that. Their behavior may not appear to be fear-driven, but the reason human beings will feel an outsized need for power and control is a deep-seated fear that they don't have any. Power can become an addiction, yes, but addiction is an attempt to self-regulate. In other words, it's an attempt to make the self feel better. The question becomes, feel better about what? The answer seems to be the feeling that they have no power, that they don't matter, that they're not special or important or scary or whatever else they're trying to be. None of this excuses the abusive or toxic behavior of narcissists, by the way. People are sometimes uncomfortable hearing that narcissistic personalities are afraid or that they feel unimportant, right? People often don't like hearing anything that potentially humanizes narcissists because they might feel like anything less than calling these people Satan himself is somehow excusing their actions or will make people vulnerable to them. Well, Satan himself would probably be a little smarter and probably wouldn't sabotage his own efforts quite as much as so many of these people do. But in all seriousness, however accurate this may feel, it's too narrow. Everyone who hurts others, even intentionally, is not evil. Some definitely are, but the reality is that fortunately, truly evil inhuman monsters are relatively rare. However, abusive, awful, toxic people are not. Now, the idea that it does excuse abusive behavior or that talking about it is somehow intended to excuse abusive behavior is often the result of people emotionally identifying with someone as a victim and projecting their own experience onto that other person. This is frequently coupled with the general idea that if somebody is in fact a victim, they cannot also be an abuser and or that they're not responsible for their own actions. This is false. Human situations are rarely so black and white, and the vast majority of abusers in the world were abused themselves at some point. It's not reasonable or even true to say that because someone felt afraid or is dealing with toxic shame, their lifelong campaign of abusing other people to make themselves feel better or to get what they need is suddenly somehow okay now. The underlying, possibly even unconscious motive for behavior does not excuse responsibility for choosing to do it or choosing not to do anything about it when you know that it's a problem or that it's something that you're doing. Ever. It just helps explain why. So what else do narcissists want? They want what they want, whatever that is. Doesn't matter if it inconveniences or even hurts other people. As we discussed earlier, narcissists are often childish and emotionally underdeveloped. They often have a low frustration tolerance and difficulty delaying gratification. They may attach irrational beliefs and disproportionate importance to getting what they want, even when it's something small. If they don't get it, it can provoke shame. Maybe they don't deserve it then, because in their black and white way of looking at things, good people always get what they want and bad people don't deserve it, so they don't get it. Or maybe it's because someone has a personal vendetta against them. After all, they are, in fact, the center of the universe. They may feel a lack of power and control when they're not giving what they want to, and this can create extreme reactions when they're told no, or even just not right now. These reactions aren't only the result of the things that we've discussed here either. Along with the severe emotional dysregulation you commonly see with this personality type, these reactions are also designed to force other people to give the narcissist what they want. It is, simply put, a temper tantrum. The wounded, dysfunctional, and immature ego is screaming. This person has all of these internal reactions to what they assume is happening, to what they perceive is happening, no way to deal with any of it, and no desire to learn a way to deal with any of it. As they seem to see it, the only way for them to feel better is not to learn emotional regulation skills or patience or a frustration tolerance or anything else that they might need to do. The only way for them to feel better is to be given what they want by whoever or whatever will not give it to them. If you are not going to do that, you are now the cause of their bad feelings. You're making them suffer or trying to screw them over somehow, or you're denying them what they need, and this is not going to go unpunished. What seems to be under this too is that they need to make sure others are going to do what they need, and if you don't give them what they want, that's a sure sign that this is not going to happen. Attaching so much importance to being given what they want is not just about these things either. Narcissists want validation from other people, and being given what they want is part of that. In a very real way, narcissists farm other people for validation, which they legitimately need for survival, since the personality's ability to sustain itself are so limited. Some people refer to this as narcissistic supply. Pathologically narcissistic personalities don't appear to be able to experience the reality of themselves except through the input and the reactions of other people. They don't seem to have anything of their own. Again, this is similar to what we see with very small children, who are dependent upon the reflections of themselves that they receive from caregivers in order to form a self-concept. If people ignore me, do I really exist? If people see me differently than I see myself, what am I really? If people don't react to me and do what I want, do I have any power at all over anything? How are my needs ever going to be met? If others don't agree with me, do I really know anything? If others are not bad, am I really good? If others are not wrong, am I really right? Narcissists are seeking validation of these things and much more, but because there's such limited ability, they need to perpetually seek it out over and over and over again anytime something happens that challenges these things. Narcissists appear to be seeking an endless stream of, yes, you exist. Yes, you are important. Yes, you matter. Yes, you have power. Yes, you are right. Yes, you are a victim. Yes, you are the hero. Yes, I feel sorry for you. Yes, I am afraid of you. Yes, I see you as you demand to be seen. Yes, yes, yes. Of course, this is not realistic in any relationship of any kind. For example, even though we strive to validate them as much as possible, even children must be corrected sometimes. This is intolerable for narcissistic personalities, but instead of trying to find understanding or strike a balance, they instead look for somebody or something else that will provide them with what they need. They just flee the situation, whether permanently or for a little while. This is part of the mechanism behind smear campaigning, for example. Not only are they looking to control the narrative and hurt the other person, they need people to believe and agree with them, with their side of it. Narcissists don't seem to have much interest in other people at all beyond securing this validation. Interactions are almost completely one-sided and transactional. They're trying to get something from the other person or the other people, and that's it. People are often confused by this because, for example, during the idealization phase, it might look like narcissists are giving as much as they are getting. They're not. It's not a difficult thing for them to put so much energy into something with such a high return. And if we pay attention, what we often find is that they're really not giving anything of substance anyway. Gifts, generic flattery, grandiose gestures that don't really actually create or perpetuate intimacy, and they're doing it in exchange for time spent basking in the glow of someone who thinks that they're amazing. It's worth it to do so little in exchange for what they need. If they get what they need, they will likely keep coming back, and it's not uncommon for them to exhaust people with their demands for attention. If they don't get what they're looking for, they generally move on pretty quickly. This is too important and the need is too constant to waste time on a well that gives no water. If they used to get it and now they feel like they no longer do, which happens in virtually all narcissistic relationships eventually, this may be met with severe retaliation and punishment up to and including walking away from the relationship, known as devaluation and discard, or attempts to reestablish some idealization and resecure the relationship to get what they still can out of it. This is sometimes called hoovering. In the end, narcissistic people are dependent upon relationships with people who would take responsibility for them, who will see them in a specific way regardless of the facts, who will put them first and essentially create an environment for them where they are in complete control of everything and can live a fantasy life which they never have to hear or see or face or do anything they don't want to see or hear or face or do, essentially because they can't deal with it. They feel justified in doing whatever they need to do in order to ensure that this happens, up to and including harming other people. They view other people as objects and extensions of themselves, so other people's rights and needs and feelings or anything else are not even on the radar. If they do know it's there, it means absolutely nothing to them. As you can see, there's no way to give these personalities what they want because what they want is not realistic, reasonable, or even possible. The reality is that if you are dealing with a pathologically narcissistic person, you're dealing with more than just a person who is stubborn and abusive and selfish. You're dealing with a person who is simply not willing and likely not even capable of functioning as a parent, partner, sibling, coworker, boss, friend. There's nothing you can do to control or change that. It is what it is. The acceptance of this is what will help you to come to peace with your inability to give this person what they want, because it brings about the understanding that nobody ever could. They will blame you and they will say that you're the reason that they're unhappy or that things didn't work out, but that's not reality. It's just what they believe. It doesn't have to become what you believe. So I hope that clears a few things up for you. As always, I look forward to your comments, questions, and suggestions, so please keep those coming. I take appointments online over the phone, via text, via messenger, via email, and through Skype worldwide. So if you're interested in speaking with me one-on-one, you can visit littleshaman.org to do that. I teach workshops, clinics, and seminars throughout the year. So if you're interested in seeing what we're running this month, you can visit littleshaman.org to do that. And if you're interested in joining our support group with access to exclusive content, you can visit littleshaman.org to do that. You've been listening to the Meditations and More podcast, brought to you by betterhelp.com and littleshaman.org. That's me, Little Shaman. May the Great Spirit bless you. Have a beautiful day.